And hello again, everyone. Dwayne here. Welcome back to the Radical of Math, your friendly Bronze Life Master in the American Contract Bridge League. And today, in the third episode of Misused Conventions, we're going to talk about two suited overcalls. This convention is definitely not only rife for abuse, but the definition itself, there are some questions. So to start our discussion, I'm looking at the ACBL convention card. And if you notice on the left column, about halfway down, you have the direct qubits area. And then in what would be the middle column, you have the jump to 2 no. By standard default, it's the 2 lowest unbid. And then there's another option depending on if you play something like Guess Them, Color Rank Odd, Overcall System, so on and so forth. So the thing I want to draw attention to is Michaels as it is known is very ubiquitous. It does not require an alert. A natural minor bid does not require an alert. And then over other, your minors are okay. So like a precision club, precision diamond, stuff like that. But over the majors, it is alertable. And that's something to keep in mind as we go through this discussion. So let's start at the very beginning and go, what is Michaels? What is the unusual 2 no trump? So I have this wonderful site, Joan Butts, I believe she's Australian, excellent instructor for those who are beginners and improvers learning bridge. And so she gives you the framework, and I want to be very careful. This is the framework of what both a Michaels qubit is, and then if you scroll down, the unusual no trump. And so basically, Michaels over a minor is both majors. And then the unusual 2 no trump combines with Michaels as it relates to one of a major. Now, let me backtrack just a moment. If the opponents open a club, the unusual 2 no trump will be diamonds and hearts. They're the 2 lower unbid. And so it's pretty easy to play, but there are some deficiencies that I want to discuss with you. So the first deficiency is, and you actually see it here on this particular article, and it's this statement here. So most partnerships play a concept called mini-max. And so mini-max is your weak hands are 0 to 7, and your good hands are 15 plus. So if you're in between, like you're 8 to 14, you're going to bid your hand out. So this is a little bit more general, but it gives you the concept. And that's really what we're after is concept. So the first problem you're going to have is everybody plays the full range unless you sit down and say we play mini-max. Now, when your partner has not yet defined their hand, that's a problem. You don't know in fourth seat where to compete. That's why you need to play mini-max. When partner has done this, though, in third seat, then the auction's very different. You have not opened, first seat has not opened, third seat may be cheeky, sit down and discuss how you want to handle that. Because there's arguments for and against playing continuous range at this point. If partners pass 10, I assume they have 8 points and bid appropriately. So very important to discuss range. The second thing is the fact that if you're in second chair, you have to be very careful. Let's say right-hand opponent opens a club and you bid 2 clubs to show majors here. And now third seat, who has not yet defined their hand, let's say they have a 10-point hand. Let's say they're 3-3 or better in your majors. And now you may be going for a telephone number. And the general mentality is once over a minor, 2 minor overcall, most good partnerships are looking for one of 2 things: 3 no trumps or a penalty double. They rather take the plus 300 versus speculating that 3 no trump goes down 1, especially at match points. So you have to be very, very careful. If you have a weak hand and your honor cards are not in your 2 suits, that is not a good 2-suited overcall. So I have played in partnerships where in second seat, that overcall can never be weak. Instead, we would play what's called med max. So partner is at least constructive or better. It's never weak. There's also something to be said in third seat where, because first seat didn't open, your partner hasn't opened. This person over here, if they open and you know that you're not on a great hand, they likely have a 2-no rebid available. So they have some way to show a really good no trump, like an 18-19 no trump in standard. So if you now make an overcall, and let's say to get the 3 no trump, they now know a lot more about the hand than if you would have stayed silent. So that's the first big issue, is when we make a 2-suited overcall at a low level, a direct Q-bid, the problem that you're going to have is going to be the simple notion that you have told your opponents the specific nature of your hand. Now, that leads to the next issue, and that is going to be the fact that most everyone plays the same type of overcall structure. So on one hand, you have field protection, but on the other hand, if players don't bid versus you bidding, you now have some problems. So what started me thinking about this again as I've returned the bridge was Max Hardy. And so Max Hardy in his 2-over-1 book talked about a concept of top and bottom Q bids. So in this example, if it goes 1 club and I now overcall 2 clubs, I am showing diamonds and spades, and your lower anchor suit must have 5 cards. Must have 5 cards. That way partner knows how to compete. And now, those very hard to show hands get shown easily. What do you trade? Well, you trade majors in this example, which clearly is important. But if you have a weak hand anyway, you're likely not going to show them. So there's a lot to be said for top and bottom qubits, and that's something that I would, in a regular partnership, I would discuss. So back in the day, I found this link talking about top and bottom. This is from 2014. Okay. So yes, you lose preempts, but keep that in mind. So I would, like I said, I would consider playing something different. So a top and bottom qubit, an example. Now, if you play top and bottom qubits, you now can get kind of fancy if you want to over a minor. And now, for example, if it goes a club, and let's say you overcall 2 diamonds, you can play that as both majors. You could play that as diamonds and hearts. And now, if you're willing to give up a 2-heart preempt over a club or a diamond, you can play that as weak majors, and now you still have suits available to you. I would strongly recommend keeping a 2-spade preempt whenever possible, because that is an important preempt, especially if your opponents are playing like an artificial strong diamond, prepared club, precision club. You need a 2-spade preempt. But I would consider looking at different ways to show 2-suited overcalls. Because in some cases you can, let's say you're white on red, you can bid 3 and you're likely not getting hit, especially when you're white versus red. Now, if you're equal color, you better have good suit quality. You better have a reason. But one of the things that you've kind of figured out, if you listen carefully, is I espouse constructive bidding, especially for those who have watched the Bergen Raises video. If you have not watched that, you need to. That is a very good video. I like constructive bidding. The idea of I'm just going to bid them up. More and more partnerships are rediscovering the lower level penalty double. So it definitely pays to be a lot more constructive. So that led me to kind of look at, what other 2-suited overcalls are out there. And I found this oldie but goodie page. And as you see, there's a list of them. And it doesn't have the overcall structure, which is something I'm very familiar with from my tournament days because I used it. So here are all these different ways to play 2-suited overcalls. My personal view is I like RCO, rank color odd. If I can't play the overcall structure, I'll play RCO. It gives up less. And that's the thing about 2-suited overcalls is you will often give up something. So keep in mind there's more than one way to skin the proverbial cat. Now, this particular author who updated this page in 2020, he goes through it, or she goes through, I'm not sure who wrote it, a very detailed explanation on two-suited overcalls. He talks about weak or strong versus wide-ranging versus weak. And I find it to be very good reading. So very good source material here. Albeit old, it has been updated in over 5 years, but the content is still very relevant. So discuss this with your partner. More and more, I'm of the view of play something different, and also be constructive with it. So here's what it means. To make life easy on the memory banks, I would play top and bottom, and now you play your 2-no as the 2 unbid. That way, you don't run into issues. So let me give you a quick example. If you bet a heart, 2 hearts are spades and clubs, 2-no are both minors. Very comfortable. You're in good shape. You keep 2 spades as your preamp. If it goes a spade, 2 spades, you now know it's clubs and hearts, both minors, you're good to go. When you get to the minors, here's a rare case where space is a negative instead of a positive. Because you have to decide, do I want a 2-heart preamp? Do I want a 2-spade preamp? Because a direct Q bid of 2 diamonds is clubs and hearts. The unusual 2-no, however, is also club and hearts. So now you need to adjust that to something else. Actually, correction, I just misspoke. 2 diamonds is spades and clubs, top and bottom. 2-no trump is hearts and clubs. So you got to think your way around this. So the point is, I would play top and bottom, keep my usual 2-nos, the 2 unbids. Have a discussion of, is it worth having weak majors versus strong majors if you want to play Michael still? Are you going to play mini max, wide ranging, weak? But especially in tournament play, it pays to play something a little different. So yes, lastly, be constructive. So with this video, I want to show you one last thing. And I actually asked the question to artificial intelligence. And the first question I simply asked was, hey, analyze this, determine what the best 2-suited overcalls are. And with 5-5, the key thing you see over one of a minor is whether it's diamond hearts, diamond spades, heart spades as the direct Q bid. The percentages are basically a statistical margin of error. Now, this is only 100,000 hands. To give you an idea, an appropriate sample of all the bridge hands possible is around 16 billion. So this is a very, very small sample. And so it talks about Michael's Q bid, unusual 2-no. It talks about guesstim, talks about CRO. I personally like knowing where my 2 suits are. That way I can bid them up. A Michael's Q bid, you definitely know. An unusual 2-no, you definitely know. Where the weakness is over one of a major. So when I did one of a major, 5-5 or better, it's almost even again. So as you see, it mentions in the next to last paragraph, top and bottom. But it also comments that standard is sufficient for play. And as you start extrapolating this to more and more, it slowly trends to a standard Michael and unusual 2-no. So this was an interesting video doing your research. I liked it. I liked the fact that there are many different ways to play this game. And that's the beautiful part about it. But definitely get your ranges sorted out. And as I said, consider playing top and bottom for your direct Q bid. So next time in episode 4, we're going to tackle a misused area instead of just a convention. And that is your one no trump response structure. There's a lot of stuff in there that doesn't make a lot of sense. So anyways, as always, take care of yourselves, take care of one another. God bless, and we'll see you next time.